It is recording.
Awesome. Well, it is 7 o'clock and I'll call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum present with all members in attendance. Going down the agenda, item 2, approval of the minutes. If you don't mind, take a minute to review the minutes. Let us know if you have any requested changes or amendments here, any kind of corrections. Are there any requested amendments?
Minor.
Yeah.
Second page under adjourn. With the last.
I was supposed to read.
Oh, it's okay. I'm selling myself.
That's embarrassing.
Showing me.
So Jessica, could we get a second page copy so we can go print it so we can.
Yeah.
With that one change requested, any other amendments? Is there a motion to approve? As amended, there's been one. Is there a second?
Second.
Hearing second, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, citizen comment period. Are there any citizens in attendance wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll close citizen comment period. Item 4, consideration of possible action. Consider and possible action on a recommendation to the city council regarding the library card policy.
Okay, so since I sent y'all the original packet, we have made some edits. And we actually, I'm learning. It is Leslie's second, third, fourth. What day are we at? Is it, are we on Thursday? It is Thursday. We are on day 4. And I've learned so much already. And so we have amended the policy, just edited it to make it cleaner. And what you have in front of you are the edits that we've made. And so for the library cards, we actually took out the group cards because it was causing just a lot of confusion. And going back to, I think we mentioned this during the last meeting as well, that educators and individuals working in groups can get a library card if they live in Hayes County. They can just get an adult resident card. Nothing's preventing them from that. And so just to keep the process a little cleaner, simpler, and easier for everyone to understand, not just the public, for the staff as well. We removed that, and so we have the 4 card types. It'll be the adult resident, youth resident, non-resident adult, and then the tech share card. Those will be the four card types. And then I cleaned up that language about how to get a library card, and so now it just says with the Kyle Public Library instead of just at the Kyle Public Library. And we did that because when Jesus gets the bookmobile and he's out and about in the community, it allows people to get a library card if he sets up at a what is it called, market stays or any event that he sets up at. So we cleaned up that language, and then we amended the card types, and the policy in front of you is the one that we have presented to our city attorney to look over to make sure it reads well legally. And then we've looked over it too to just make sure it reads well. And it's been approved by the city attorney. And it is, once she approves it, it's basically ready to go to council for approval. Trying to think, was that everything?
That was, yes.
Okay.
When the 2 things as well is that the group cards, Jesus can have an internal card for, say, going to a daycare or assisted living or memory care, something like that, you will have an internal card for those folks. If they're in a residential facility, they are residents and can have a card, or we can do the group. So we will have access for those folks to check out. And then going forward, all policies go to our city attorney. Anything we're going to have you approve, all our contracts, anything that has terms and conditions will all go to our city attorney for approval first, then go to council. So we can then say, she approved, you approved, and then we'll have council hopefully approve as well.
Any questions? Take time to read over it.
Did you want to talk about anything we changed in here? Yeah.
Did we change anything in there?
You had it. One of my concerns in the original application was just about financial responsibility. And we wanted to make sure that when children check out items, that the adult, the caregiver, guardian, parent is taking responsibility for what's checked out in content, not just financial. And I was glad to see that was part of this new application.
Me too.
Are there any other questions or concerns with clarification on that policy?
To clarify, we struck the youth non-resident card. Okay.
Now we did, yes, I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot about that. We did take out the youth non-resident card and left it as an adult resident card because they would need an adult to drive them here anyways. And so it just made more sense if it's going to be the adult that brings them anyway. So it might as well be the adult that gets that library card.
And if it were to be a teen and they drive themselves, they would have the parent card. They would have their parent's card. But having the non-resident, they're likely not going to pay for all these cards. They're likely going to want. So we gave them all the same privileges, but just the option to have an adult card.
Yeah. And then in the circulation policy, when we go to the circulation policy, it does state in there that you are responsible for whoever uses your card to address if a child uses a parent's card.
So not substantive, it's formatting on 2 and 3, since you only have an A. Is it necessary to break it out as an A? Usually you do a,
Bullet
can have multiple or both, or I don't even know that it's necessary. I think that 2A can just be added to the end of 2. And then A, just part of picture cards, maybe a hyphen for requirement or something like that. People just look clean.
Yeah, we can make those formatting edits.
It's nice.
Mm-hmm.
It looks that looks very clean.
Yes.
I'm getting better cleaning these up with the formatting. Though, when I went to go print these off, it does say library, public library card application on the bottom of the page and off the top, so we need to fix that.
This form is significantly longer than the current form. Has staff brought that up as more of a procedural concern?
No, it looks longer too, because I think it also just provides a little more space to write. Yeah.
Any other comments here? Hearing none, I would motion to approve as amended, those amendments that we just pointed out, them just formatting minor things.
Okay.
Recommend presentation to council.
Second.
Hearing a second, all in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion passes. Item 3, consideration and possible action on recommendation to council regarding the circulation policy. Jessica, Leslie, you want to present this one?
Go ahead.
So this one, there weren't as many edits as with the library card one. We did take out anything concerning the group card, so that has been removed. And then for this one, I'm gonna get to, I gotta get to the actual policy. We took out the non-resident youth card. And so for this one, we changed, let me see. I forgot what we changed. Oh, we took out where you can mail things to the library. We took that out. And then we took out the sentence about, you can contact the director if there's any, if you need us to make an exception, that's kind of a given. And then we took out where it says refunds are eligible for a year. We made it 30 days because they're giving it a year can be an extended amount of time. And if someone finds a book 4 months down the road, they're very lucky they can keep that book. It is now theirs. They've already paid for it. And then that will help a lot on the financial side too, to help avoid any confusion, especially if it's 9 months later that they find the book. I think those were the only edits. Let me go back and just read this. Oh, and then where it said cardholders may not check out items nor access digital content if their account is blocked for either of the following reasons. And it said, any fines overdue past the limit defined by the fee schedule. Well, I went to the fee schedule to actually look at the fee schedule to see what the limit was. And there's nothing stated on the fee schedule about a limit that could potentially block an account. So we changed it to any unpaid fees. And with this, once we, on the fee schedule, going for council's approval, we are trying to get rid of late fees. And so realistically, in the future, if somebody has any fees on their account, it wouldn't be from late fees. It would be either for a damaged item or a lost item. And then damaged or lost items, we thought it was $10. We thought it was a $10 limit. And a damaged item or lost item would have exceeded that $10 limit anyway. So that's why it says any unpaid fees.
You mentioned removing the line about library director's discretion.
Yes.
I don't love that, because if there is a deviation that is allowable, make sure the public knows that it exists for them to exercise. I think it's an act of transparency. That's a good thing. And if there is a case that there is a deviation for whatever good reason, if it's not bound in that policy, that also looks a little icky of
Right.
changing your mind and not conforming with the policy.
So when we are completely finished, whatever's sort of our last page, there will be that caveat to anything that's in this policy packet that the library director bring it to the attention of the library staff and can always return to the library director for additional conversation or reconsideration. So putting it in frequently becomes repetitive, but it's also, people will call, they will email me, they will come see the director about exceptions that they want to be made. When you put it in very frequently, you're almost encouraging an exception, people asking for the exception to be made. If we can leave it out of this part and make absolutely sure it's probably at the very end of conduct and what were we talking about? Patron use and conduct?
Yes, yeah.
And that's everything then, that anything that we have listed in our policies, of course, they can always seek out the director. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
And so you can hold me accountable that when we get to that last section of this, that we include that, absolutely. Same with, some things are given is that you could always mail something back to us, but saying mail it back, I think just is a jargon inside of it. But if you really want it in there and you feel passionate about it, we can put it back in. I think it serves better to put it at the end of all policies, right above the Bill of Rights and the freedom to read and all of that, so they know this all has been approved by the board. And when you have exceptions, that's when you need to seek my attention or the board's attention. I'm hoping there is a reconsideration as part of the circulation as well. And so that is a place to put it in, because there's a form to say, I want this to be reconsidered, but
There's a reconsideration with the collection development policy that we have.
And I know there we had called out the library director's discretion when it comes to patrons saying we'd like to consider whatever materials they have a concern with. And then an appeal process exists there, and we plugged in the Bill of Rights and everything else as an addendum to that policy there. I know as a group, we had discussion on that topic of calling out discretion. I'd be comfortable if we put that at the end as a catch-all for all the policies above. I'm okay with that, but I'm open to dissent or disagree.
So not so much dissent, I would be comfortable with whatever the group does. I think the only concern that I have is that we've been at this project for a while, and I think only one has gone forward. And so trying to keep pace and make sure that everything is consistent and will sustain. I wonder if we already have one, whatever we did with that one, we continue with the consistency aspect of it. And then once everything has been done, if what we're wanting to then revise is pull that one sentence, put it at the end of something, I think that would be much easier to do. But I just don't know how much longer it's going to be for us to complete this project.
sure.
If it's giving me concern too.
We change it tonight, it has to go back to Amy for approval and then back to you next month. It's just up to you, but we're going to end up having it in every section practically, unless we kind of put it there at the very end that then they're pretty much, the public knows to talk to someone next, whether that be the tech supervisor or a librarian or something like that. So the policies that I've seen, other than that final statement, pretty much are with the reconsideration. Those are the two places. It's the all and then that reconsideration situation.
I think another issue that I would like to raise as we're making this decision is how the public actually accesses these policies. Because on a lot of websites and in the past, it has been like link circulation policy. And while the policies themselves do exist as a whole, people who are trying to figure out information about a certain policy often do not read an entire, what is this going to be, like 20-page packet?
Yeah.
They're going to say, okay, I have an issue with it relates to circulation. I'm going to read this. And so if they're separate links, or if people are only accessing one part, then they would not have that piece of information that is like as a statement at the end. I'm not saying that's like a make or break, but I do think that that's important to consider how people actually are using the document.
Sure.
Because I don't think the public is going to sit down and read the whole thing through.
Are we separating it out as links?
They are separated
So
on
that's
the
where
website.
You go forward.
Yes.
Is that- Okay.
And as far as like taking it to the director, that could also be more of a procedure to like, these are the policies. And then we would address it this way. We would address the late item this way, or we would address the damage item this way. And if, if a patron is not satisfied with how we can address it, I feel like that's really kind of a procedural thing of the patrons like, I don't agree with this. And then as a procedure, it's like, well, if you don't agree with this, we can then take it to the director. So I do feel like we can also make that very clear on the website as well.
I would feel less comfortable with that approach of the procedure outline,
Mm-hmm.
because if the policy has to go to council, these are the terms that council signed off on.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a separate document that does not have to go to council,
Mm-hmm.
that can override what council said, that doesn't feel the best option to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, procedures are really just internal. These are definitely like the rules set in place, so. But we can, if we add it, we'll just bring it back. We are hoping to, get it pushed along, but also y'all are the advisory board, so.
Can you reference us to the specific line that you took it out of?
It was, right where it was between returning items and fees for overdue or lost or damaged items. And I don't have the original one with me. But if Mary does, I would not be surprised.
I want to note too, I don't know if this also means that it has to go back, but there's at least one typo. There's a typo on the second line. It says Tide Public Library, and there's an extra space, I think, between the E and S in promotes. And then I believe a grammatical error on the first bullet point. Staff assumes, I assume that you're using staff as a plural there, in which case I think it should just be staff assume. I don't know if those are changes that can be made.
Any grammatical changes
Okay.
can just be made.
I know I said that really fast. Did you grab all those?
I got the staff. I got the
Title
soon.
on the second line down.
And I think there's a space in promotes that, I don't know, it just looks a little. It looks, you know, there's an extra space in promotes right before,
EMS.
yeah.
Oh. Where are you looking?
Here, right here.
Oh, okay. Okay, let me see.
That could be one of those doc X versus doc.
Yes.
Mhm.
So I know that we can move forward with the grammatical changes without having to go back to legal and get that reworked. Before there's a decision on verbiage regarding discretion, kind of want to get a pulse check from the group. Are we feeling like that is enough of a substantive change to warrant a delay for a month? Do we feel comfortable with the catch-all at the end of the policies, noting, Jessica, the concerns of how patrons would actually access them? How are we feeling?
If a patron does not, if a patron has a fee for an overdue item, and if I understand your new language correctly related to blocking accounts, is it true that if they have an lost or damaged item, they cannot use their card at all anymore?
So if it's a lost item and, well, first, it has to be overdue for at least 30 days to be considered lost.
Right.
And so once it's a lost item or overdue, yeah, it will block the account until they return the item. If it's damaged, they would need to pay for that item to then access before they can use their card again.
That's a great question, because I think that I lean toward that. I already have an example in my head of someone that doesn't agree with the damage. You know, like I think damage has naturally in it a lot of discretion. And obviously there are situations where this is clearly damaged, but I wonder about those edge cases and having that protection for your staff. Be like, there is yes, you do not need to keep on yelling at the staff member about this damage thing. We will move this along. There will be a way for you to ask for reconsideration. In something very concise and short and vague that points to a process. Because right now it reads as if there's no process. It will be assessed as damaged. And
I just feel like you could lose patrons. I don't know. I feel like there are cases in which you could lose patrons over that. For being upset about the damage thing, or just a patron loses an item, cannot pay for the item, and then stops using the library. And yes, there is a process, but they might not know that there's a process or a possibility of forgiveness, I guess, or of an exception being made. So I'm kind of leaning towards, I do think it would be nice to put in it, but I also understand like there's a certain amount of work that like a library director can do and like a certain amount of load to handle. And I understand the impulse of being like, we don't want like people just coming in and constantly asking for exceptions. But I don't know. I'm leaning towards, I personally do like that being in this section for these reasons.
I think it provides transparency and it's less of an issue. I think could you be inviting more concerns possibly, but at least they'll be heard versus nope, this is it, this is the paper and that's it.
Sure. In my experience, that people will talk to whoever they need and go up the chain or start at the top. And my job is to be there for the patrons and answer questions. So it was not removed so that I don't have to address those. When it involves finances, absolutely, they will find me right away. We do have, pretty much every library has some give as far as, was this dropped in the pool and it's still wet as it arrives through the door? Or does it just look like it's been in the backpack and really loved and read a lot? And there's a difference between that. And we have a lot of grace that we give to those, that books, they do fall apart. They are left in a car and melt, absolutely. And so we give a lot of grace with that. I think libraries across the board do that. But it just, it's what you all think our patrons would feel better about. But when they are assessed a damage and they don't want to, they don't believe they are responsible, they will find me. I'm well versed in that and have a lot of grace with people too,
I worry less about the squeaky wheels, but I worry about those families that are not gonna be the squeaky wheels. They're gonna quietly quit.
Okay.
And I do think that when dealing with the public, there is a proportion of the public that will always do that. They will know, they will see the rules and they will assume that they have to abide by them and there's no exception. They're just as the same, there's always the people that expect there to be an exception. There are people that don't ask. And I worry about that. I feel conflicted, but I lean toward, I want to err toward that population.
Okay.
So if they're looking at all the links and they see one at the very bottom, puts a link to exceptions, would they not check that out?
If it's titled exceptions, that would call it out, but my understanding is the thought process is this is going to be a catch-all location of across the board, the library adheres to these set of principles, these are the Bill of Rights. There is an exception when things occur. It's not intended, as I understood it, as like a big poll. Here are the exceptions to all.
But that is a good idea
That could be.
of need to speak with someone about something that's happening with your account or the policies and it direct them and have my email right there and ways to reach me. I think that's beautiful. When we send out overdue notices, are those very generic? Here's what happened. And could we put something on there? Do
We
you
can
need to
change-
speak to someone about this? Here's who you talk to, that would be even better, is
We can
on the
change the
invoice.
messaging.
No one likes that surprise, is what happened here. And if you need to speak to someone, then call us. And the staff just be well versed in what can they handle versus what is routed straight to me. I think that I like that actually, is to have it on an invoice. I don't know what the invoices look like when they go out yet, but
Yeah, we can change the language on messaging and the invoices, and then we can also clean up our procedures with how we assess damaged items too. So we're not just charging people. We ultimately, as library employees, we never try to just charge people. We don't have good feelings about it. And so like part of the procedure is we do try to get a second opinion before we charge somebody. That way it's not just our feelings of like, is this damage? We always try to get a second opinion, and we always look at the book's history. How many times is this book checked out? Because if we can find, as library employees, it's natural for us to try to find an excuse to not charge that person. We're like, oh, this has already been charged. This has already been checked out 4 times. We're not confident that it wasn't the previous person who did this. And so we're already really cautious with charging people for damaged items. And then we always try to provide grace too with lost items as much as we can to give them a little more time to search for it. Is it possible that we can go in internally and try to renew it one more time to give them a little more time? And so that is all on our end, like procedures that we can clean up. But difference between procedures and then the actual policies. And we can't state like on the website or anything, like if you have any concerns, please feel free to reach out and provide the different options. You can call, you can email. We will definitely want to make it where we're easily accessible if people have any concerns.
I like that. I think it's important that there be notifications somewhere, like on their renewal notice or their date notice, but also on the website. Because I have been in that position when my kids were young, that we were the family that just stopped going to the library when one of my kids lost a couple of books. We just didn't go again for years. So I think it's a concern, and like that's really important.
I think overall, we try to err on the patron side, and I wasn't kidding about they bring in the book and it's still dripping wet from the pool. That's how bad it has to be before we love that they are well loved.
In the sense I get from hearing the feedback here is I don't think there's a concern that the director, library staff is going to err on the side of an oppressive rule. I don't get that sense. I think that the concern is more the patrons that are maybe more underserved, underprivileged, that are too fearful to speak up and ask for the exception. Are they going to have the same access to exceptions as somebody who would? And I mean, there's a factor just who the person is, the personality type. You can't control for that. But is the policy that we're putting forward supportive and giving that population as much of a chance as others? That's what I feel from the group. But I will also say in the past 2 years, is the one time I don't feel a good consensus. I still want to go.
I like it in.
Okay.
I think it is transparent. I think it does give you the warm and fuzzy in the regard of, supporting those that might not ask for the exception, typically. And I also like it in because it's right there in front of them and they don't have to go looking for other information. Granted, it's the library and people come to read here. It's great and all. But if they don't have to read something, a lot of people aren't going to read something. So it being that first point of contact that they're looking instead of having to search for something else is great. And even too on the invoices, I think that's also a great idea. Because they're all obviously going to look there first because they're actually receiving that from the library. But it being in the policy is important because procedures are supposed to be supportive of the policy. So if we're procedurally going to be allowing the director to make decisions, we should be allowing for that also in the policy as well, in my opinion.
I think we've reached a majority at least. Are there any other topics that we have not brought up, any contrary views where we've been at? I want to make sure we're not omitting any of things here.
does the website allow for a form? So they could contact the library by phone, they could send you an email. But for routing, if you have staff that could handle some concerns where they don't need your attention, we could have the notes on each policy, which I think everybody is comfortable doing. But there could also be a link at the end of the form, questions, concerns. And they could fill out a form and just give feedback. Like I tried to call, I couldn't get a hold of you. I
Yeah.
emailed last week.
I don't,
I don't know.
I don't think that's available right now. It could be something I know, kind of just redoing the website as a whole is something that the city is looking into, but that's something we could look into potentially doing. I kind of have an idea of how to go about that, but I can also investigate what other libraries are doing too. So just like a general feedback form.
Yes, so they read the policy, there's an exception, contact, and there's a name and a number, but if for some reason they're having difficulties, or they don't think that that applies to the policy, or they have something else to say, maybe there could be a form where it could be routed to not just the director, but maybe to other staff in the library that handle certain things. Where
Escalated situation.
yeah, it kind of, so that she's not bombarded with 500 emails. It goes somewhere where it's about this person is equipped to handle it. Versus 5 different emails under a circulation. Some way to route versus,
Yeah, like on the website, like,
Yeah.
okay.
rather than she's going to have to forward however email she'll get.
Makes sense.
Mhm.
I was like, I know that we do something similar already for request for like outreach, if people are requesting outreach and we have a form for that. So it'd be something similar and then we're able to send it to who would be able to meet that request. So we can look into something like that.
I can also see like an internal procedure where that there are certain criteria that is met for the damage that you have already set forth, like if it meets this criteria for damage or whatnot, staff can go ahead and approve this and it can be submitted and they'll be fine, or, whatever kind of forgiveness that you guys want to do as a procedure internally, but also allowing that person to be like, oh, I can reach out. And there could possibly be an exception, but there's also internal parameters already in place to deal with those, those requests that you might be getting. And so it's not like we have to look at every single case, like every single case is not going to be, just crazy different. There's going to be pretty typical things that come in. And in my opinion, or the way I see procedure, that's how a procedure will handle those type of fielding those type of, requests for exceptions, because even though it's an exception, they're pretty typical. They're pretty typical exceptions.
Yes.
They won't always be extraordinary.
Yeah.
So I haven't this deep into this yet, but where I come from, we took photographs of the damage. We printed those and then attached them to the book that was returned damaged, so that no matter who in the staff is on the desk when that person comes in, we know exactly what they were notified of, what damage, so that when they come in and say, we didn't know we damaged it, we can say, oh, it's this. But it does have to be blatant damage. The whole chapter's missing, or but I do find that internal procedure helps everyone understand why it's been tagged as damaged, which helps with the explanation, whether it's me or someone on desk or Jessica or anyone like that. So
Yeah, because it could free you up. Like, these are already in place. So if we get something that's submitted to us as an exception, we have an exception book or whatever that we're referencing and be like, oh yeah, this fits. We can go ahead and handle it this way.
Would it be useful to have on the policies, I don't know how hard it is to get an info email address. And then somebody can read the info and either route it to you or somebody else. To keep.
We
emails
kind
down.
of have, we have the circulation email that kind of serves as that. It's very, very generic, it's circulation, which can be difficult to spell. I have found myself. So, I struggle with it. But that's kind of our general email.
Look, there's a link in the policy since it's gonna be online, but you just click the link, it should bring it up.
I can see, I can go online to look at how the policies are presented online. I do know that they are separated and you do click each individual policy to access them. But I can see for the overall like homepage for the policies, how that's formatted and to see,
If we could put a hyperlink
Inside
inside
of it.
of a document might,
yeah.
may or may not. So we can definitely look at it.
And my recommendation, just kind of off the cuff of the discussion here, is that the pace of change of things is going to be increasing. And I would fear if we put something into a policy that requires staff update the policy, bring it to the board, talk to the attorney, send it to council, because who knows what happens if AI takes over, you know, nothing next month, like things could change. You certainly want to have a way, to your point, that there's a very clear direction for patrons to say, this is how I communicate to city staff, and I have a problem and I need something to be resolved, or whatever the case is. Definitely make that as easy as possible. I would not recommend putting it into a policy, just because it's going to change.
So then for the exception to put back in the policy, there are exceptions. How will we, the person reading the policy need to contact?
I would leave that as we hinted at before, at least maybe we explicitly put in the policy that maybe haven't been approved yet to council, language along the lines of, at the discretion of the library director, they have the ability to waive or discuss any parts of these policies with the patron, however that phrasing we had before.
Okay.
Something that's more
Very generic.
generic.
Yeah.
That's generic, if they contact and then they could put whatever they want on the webpage itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Sorry, Brad, I think I cut you off at one point.
I
No,
got it
I-
off first, so.
I think that we're kind of circling what I was gonna say, which is, I think we cannot get too in the weeds about what policy might say or what procedure might say, but it's really crux of it is, should we include this bigger statement that there is additional discretion available or not? And if that is the decision point, then I would say that I err on having it in there, that there is some discretion available. Because it's both of those statements. One is the loss, damage, return, et cetera, window and assessment. But also, we know that in the past, there have been exceptions also for replacement copies, which is the next very strong statement, which is that will never be allowed. And if we're gonna say that, then we probably want to have that. Sometimes there's exception.
Okay.
So I think we have at least a majority. Before I call the vote, are there any other items here that we have not discussed that we think is the benefit of this?
Minor.
That-
Formatting, sorry,
No, it's great.
the updated, whatever we did with the last approval and wherever that updated effective date is going to be, I think it needs to be, the same in the same place, because I didn't see that one in the one that we just approved. The other thing too, the font seems to be smaller on this one. And it could be because we probably tried to fit it into two pages. But I think it's important for everything to be the same.
I
So
think,
whatever font.
I think that I accidentally printed it to two different printers too.
What is,
It could be my eyes, but it just, it's the other one.
what does the collection development, what it should have is when it's signed into council approval, at the very end, it should have that date.
Right.
It's,
But do we need this?
no, that is supposed to be not there. It's a header.
Okay, and then that would be consistent, and I like that, yeah, and then if.
That's my header.
It's very late in the day and. but on the first set of bullets, we do need to indent them so that they follow the other ones. And
Also, they don't follow the same bullet structure as the other policies.
Like the AB.
Yeah, this is Roman numeral one and then one A. This is Roman numeral one and then just bullet.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. I will motion to recommend this policy be sent back to the library staff to make updates on the formatting and then to consider inclusion of a clause regarding the library director's discretion. There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Hearing a second, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Is it, if there are no other changes aside from that statement, do we still need to? And, or can we approve it knowing that that's it?
I think regardless, you have to go back to the city attorney to get that reviewed again. And at that point, I suspect she's going to want to bring it back to here and look at a formal vote before it goes back to the council, correct? Okay. Okay. That brings us down to the end of the agenda. Are there any other topics before we adjourn?
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead.
We are going to work next on,
It's the library conducts policy, or some libraries call it like appropriate use policy. So that will be the next one. And then bringing back the text share one that we worked on, because we tabled that one before. And so it kind of goes along with all of this because it does say refer to the text share policy. So we will be bringing back that one as well.
do you think we'll have either of those next month?
The text share one is basically done. We worked a little bit on it with the policy committee. And then we have the appropriate use on our websites already. And so we just need to translate that to an official policy.
I have a question.
Yes,
We usually have like a little director's report thing,
yes.
and we don't have that, and then.
We don't have
I
that.
don't have this. Which there probably is very good reasons that that is happening.
So,
But I would love to have it in.
yes,
future
we'll have it in
meetings. Okay.
September. The reason we don't have the director's report is because my report was due on Friday and I forgot what I was doing or dealing with, but I had to get it submitted. And I was like, I don't have time to get it submitted. And so I was like, but we have to get this going. That's why
That's okay.
it's not there.
Yeah.
And I think you're still pulling summer together.
Yes, we don't have all the stats.
We
for
don't have a
summer yet,
prize.
so
A prize winner yet.
for the bicycles, we haven't
So
made the bicycles.
That'll be a nice
Yeah.
recap next time. Yeah, I'm used to seeing a director's report and informational items and things too.
Yeah,
And that is a normal feature that we have.
yes.
Exception feature.
Well, prepare for next one to be twice as
Yeah.
long because Jessica will talk about her parts of wrapping up summer and then I'll have a lot of new information for you all as well.
Yes, Jim. So I use a template for the minutes, and I always have a director's report. Do you just want me to put underneath your director?
Just none.
Yeah, it's none.
Yeah.
And I see no report from funds of the library.
No.
Yes. Just wanted to put that.
The bookmobile has started. I do know that. I've met with a couple of them and it is in production. So very excited about that and meeting with the staff and getting ready for that. But really, I've been very busy with looking at how we're wrapping up this fiscal year budget and approaching the next fiscal year and encumbrances and POs and lots of those situations. And I'll have a really nice spreadsheet probably for you next time to talk about where we're at and where we're going. Some things that were approved inside the budget package, because by the time we meet next time, the budget should be approved
Yes.
or real close.
So for the offensive library, should I just put name or should I mention the book name?
Not because they weren't here to, but just so that you all know, it's very exciting.
Anything else?
No accomplishments, that's another header. And that's,
Accomplishments?
we've had accomplishments in the
Uh,
past. Do we still?
Have we had accomplishments?
We, then you.
Yeah, I know. I was like, that's an accomplishment in my book.
Spent her whole week training me in, filling me
I'm
in.
like, I feel like that's you personally. Um, I'm not sure. So for the next meeting, we'll be able to probably include like summer reading stats because talking to staff, they feel good about our like how it played out as far as our stats compared to last summer. So, but it just like we just wrapped up. August 3rd was the last day you could pick up prizes. So that was just last Saturday. And so this month is kind of pulling all that data together. But if you want to know what the accomplishment was for summer, it's that we had over 300 and something people for that Austin reptile guy.
Again.
I was not here for that, y'all. But yes, it was a huge, huge hit.
Should I put it in this one?
No, you have to put that in. But if y'all are wondering, huge hit.
I'm sorry.
Austin, it's Austin Reptile. Yeah, that one was a huge hit. Yes. Yeah. He always brings all the people and the snakes.
Was it inside the library or outside?
In
this
room.
Are there any announcements or needs that you have for us for this?
No, so August is really kind of our transitional month when we're going from summer to getting ready for fall. And so it's time, like a lot of staff will take some time off, take a breather, and then we are really into the just really deep in planning for the fall and getting our fall program done. So generally in August, just in general, it's just a slow time for programs and announcements because we're all just taking a deep breath and getting ready to jump back into the fall programming.
Last question.
Yes.
Since we didn't have a meeting for the last one, do I notate it at all in the minutes that there was no meeting this week?
Perfect. So hearing no other business and our agenda is exhausted. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Christina? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, it is 7:53. We are adjourned.
Oh, there's my face.
Second.
Session.
Second.
Oh,
Yes.